Hi there, Phil Simborg for the USBGF, and today we're going to talk about Crawford and post-Crawford. The Crawford rule, for those of you who don't know, is a rule that was invented by John Crawford, a great uh, classic backgammon player from the olden days in the 60s and 70s, and he came up with a great rule. In a match, the first player who gets to within 1 point of winning the match for the first game and the first game only, nobody can double. So it's Crawford. So here we are. Blue has got 4 points in a match to 5, and red has 2, and blue won the last game and is 1 away from winning. So for one game, there can be no cube. Now, what's important to know about this game is that when you start the game, you should realize that gammons are not very important either way. If you're blue, you certainly don't need to win a gammon because you only need 1 point. If you're red, you certainly don't care if you lose a gammon because your opponent wins the game if they win 1 point. So gammons that way don't matter at all. But what about if red wins a gammon? Is that a good thing? And this is something that people get confused about a lot. Yes, it helps red a little bit, just a very little bit, to win a gammon. Because if he wins 2 points, then on the next game, the score would be 4-4, and you would be playing for the match. But if he only wins 1 point, he'd be losing 3-4. So he'd have to turn the cube, and his opponent would have a free drop. So the difference of winning or not winning a gammon is only worth the free drop, which, by the way, is worth about 2.5%. So it's not that much. Let's talk about what we mean by the free drop. Let's pretend that red, by the way, so the way you would play this game is to not care about gammons. Maybe if you get to the very end of the game, you have a chance maybe to win a gammon. You might gamble just a very little bit for that gammon, remembering that it's only worth 2.5% to have that free drop. So what do we mean by the free drop? Let's pretend that red wins the point. And now red needs 2 points to win the game, and blue needs 1 point. And let's say that red has a good start. He rolls a good opening roll of 4-2. And let's say that blue has a decent roll of 5-3. Now it's red's turn. Red should double here. Why should you play this game out without turning the cube when your opponent only needs 1 point? Why should you have the cube at 1? You should turn the cube to 2, because you don't want to keep playing this game out this way. If you win, you don't win the match, so you should double. What should blue do? Well, blue has two choices. He can drop, start all over, and his odds of winning the match when you start another game would be 50-50. Or he can continue playing here if he thinks his odds of winning this game are better than 50-50. Do you think blue has better than 50-50 chance here? Well, I don't. Red made a better point. The 4 point's better than the 5 point, than the 3 point. And red's on roll now. Red's got a significant advantage in this game. So blue should take his free drop and just start all over. Red should double, and blue should pass. And that's almost what should happen. It happens about half the time when your opponent has a free drop. But don't wait. Don't give him the chance of maybe having a take because he gets to better than 50%. Make him use up that free drop. So unless you're a really advanced player, generally speaking, when your opponent has a free drop, you should pretty much double on the first roll. Now, there are exceptions. For example, let's say you rolled a 4-2 and your opponent rolled, say, a 5-2 and split. Now you might play on. If you're a good player here, you can see why if you were to double now, you know for sure blue would drop, but you actually might be too good to double. What happens if you were to roll a double 5 now? Or a 5-3 and he dances, or a double 3 and he dances. Red has some really good rolls here and could maybe win the whole match with a gammon. And if things don't go well, you can always double later. So technically, you're actually a little bit too good to double here. Let me show you. Too good to double, but look how small it is, 0.016. So again, I recommend, because it could be a problem for you, that if you're a beginner or an intermediate player, for the most part, you probably should be doubling on the first roll, unless you can clearly see a huge advantage and where you might be able to get lots and lots of gammons. So what happens in most of these games is you don't roll double 5 or 5-3, and you end up doubling the next roll, and he ends up dropping, and you start all over anyway. So it's important to know, again, whether your opponent has a free drop or not. Now, what if your opponent does not have a free drop? Let's say that it's post Crawford. For example, the score was 4-1 Crawford, and then you win a point and it's 4-2. Now, it's very important to know that winning 1 point is just about as good as winning 2 points, because you're going to double on the first roll next time if you only win 1 point. So you're 2 games away from winning the match. So that means that blue should be taking just about every cube. In fact, his take point is about 2.5% here. I think it's 2.39%. Let's see what Extreme Gammon says. Analyze, cube information, 2.39%. Am I a genius or what? I'm not a genius, and I didn't peek. It's just that I've looked at this enough times, and I've given this lesson enough times to remember that blue should take any cube at all that he's given, as long as he can win more than 2% of the time, more than 2.39% of the time. Of course, gammons matter. If the cube were on 2, the gammons cost him the match if you get gammons. So you have to figure in gammons at 1.0. But if you're figuring out whether or not to take or drop the cube, if you have, say, 15% of the time that you would get gammoned, that means you'd only need to win the game 15% of the time to cover those gammon losses, plus another 2.39%. Your gammon adjusted take point basically is about 18%. So even if you could only win the game 18% of the time, it's a big take. So blue is going to have a take for a long, long time. Now, red should probably, unless you're a really fine player, should probably double on this first roll anyway. But it's not a big mistake to wait. If you know what you're doing and you are careful not to lose your market, not to wait too long. See, it's only a 0.016 error, 1.6%, to not double here, even though you're supposed to double here. But it's a game that good players will often play, especially if you're playing a weaker player. I wouldn't double here, because I don't think, unless I rolled double fives and he danced, I don't think I'd lose my market. So he's probably going to take on the next roll anyway. And so let's say I roll something good like a 5-3. And let's say he comes in with something bad like a 5-1. He's still taking this cube. Have I lost my market? Let's take a look. Does he still win this game enough to take? Yes. But lots of people would drop this, and he'd be making a 28% mistake to drop this cube. Let's do a gammon adjusted take point, because it's interesting to approach the game that way. Blue gets gammoned about 23% of the time. So if you could estimate your guess at the gammons at 23%, and the gammon price is 1.0, and you don't get any value for winning a gammon if the cube were on 2, because you only need 1 point to win the match anyway. So you have 23 gammons, and your take point is 2.39. So you add the 23 gammons times 1.0, which is 23, to 2.39, and you'd have about 26%. Or actually 25.5, but let's call it 26%. So as long as blue could win this game 26% of the time, it's right to take. And look, he wins it 40% of the time. So this would be a horrible pass. But by waiting on that first roll and doubling now, I can get that 1 point from a lot of people who would say, oh, I'm not taking this. This looks scary to me. Looks like it would not be a take. And what about if blue didn't come in with the 5-1? What if he just danced? Did I lose my market then? Do you still think he has more than 2.39 after you have the gammons? Slightly. He'd only be making a 4.3% mistake now. It's only a small error for him to pass this cube now, but it's still an error, and I didn't lose my market. So the point here is, when your opponent does not have a free drop, you can wait a little bit to give the cube. The danger is if you wait too long. The danger is, for example, if I didn't double now, it would be a pretty big error, because I could easily roll a 3-1 or a double 4 or something, double 6, some really good roll now where he really would have a drop next time, and now I'll only win 1 point instead of winning the whole match, which I would win a lot of times by rolling really great and winning a gammon or winning the 2 points. So think about these things before the opening roll, whether you're the one who is 1 away or whether you're the one that's not. Does my opponent have a free drop, or do I have a free drop? What's the cube action going to be? And these take points. The game's on the line. These are very critical scores. And I won't get in today how to play the checkers, because when you have a free drop or not a free drop, you actually do play the checkers differently, even on the opening roll. So this is worth studying. One of my favorite sayings, you don't know what you don't know. if you don't know how you play opening rolls differently when your opponent has a free drop or not, now you know something you need to study. You need to set it up in extreme gammon and set up the score this way and look at all the different opening rolls, and you'll see that when he has a free drop, you don't slot the point. When he has a free drop, you wouldn't slot with a 2-1 or a 4-1. And when he has a free drop, I'm sorry, when he doesn't have a free drop, you would slot. When he does have a free drop, you would not, because you just can't come out ahead on some of these gambling plays on the opening roll. Because if they work, he's just going to drop, and if they don't work, then you're unhappy. So you have to change even some of your opening strategies and early game strategies. But until you're an expert player, whenever you can double, when your opponent is one away, probably should be just doubling on the first roll. And if you are a more advanced player, give some thought to playing some games with your opponent when he doesn't have a free drop. Make it a little tougher for him. And when he does have a free drop, think about the possibility of maybe you could be too good even after the first roll. So I hope this was interesting for you, and thanks for watching. This is Phil Simborg for the USBGF. Bye-bye.